pasó, Jonathan? Who the fuck is Brit? Que habló con Britney y también con la otra muchacha.
But what are you talking about? You're my only girl.
Aquí está Jonathan. Y después dijo que estaba el teléfono con Britney.
What should we be talking about right now?
Y después, no sé, bien estúpido.
Baby, come closer, give me some closure. Asking myself, like, why is we over? Why bring me love? God, take you my clothes. Like, every time you cry, I gave you my shoulder. But you wanna do me in the worst way. And it's 24 hours to your birthday. Bro, I swear you look better on your worst day. Like, ain't no hope, but I hit it on the first day. Like, where was you at when I needed?
I have been granted the opportunity to completely detach myself from everything that has molded me this far. I'm moving. This has given me the opportunity to reflect on who I've really become. And certain events have unfolded that has me pondering on the thought, am I toxic? I recently stumbled upon a podcast, No Deep Dives, a Flex Mommy podcast to be exact. And this is for my hashtag thought daughters, hashtag reflective thinkers, hashtag human design explorers. She puts a kink in my brain that I did not know I needed kink. She has light research, but thorough explanation. In this particular episode, she dived into what shadow work is. The definition states, it's confronting the aspects of the personality that you choose to reject and repress, including parts of your psyche, for the perceived benefit of societal acceptance. Hey, okay, so first thing we're going to do in this investigation to find out, am I toxic, is define toxic. And yes, I have my notes here with me as well. So, toxic can be described as poisonous, very harmful or unpleasant in a pervasive or insidious way. If I were to think like right now in my most present time, I wouldn't feel like I'm like that just off the bat. Like, I don't really like hurting people's feelings because I don't like my feelings getting hurt. And I just like to treat people the way I want to be treated. The only time that I would say this definition describes me is if I feel as though somebody wronged me or was rude or mean to me. Like, for instance, I just recently left this job and the environment was very abrasive. Very abrasive. I remember I would get into it like passionately with somebody that was of higher management. They would come at me that way. It's like, and then as we bounced off of each other, the energy just climbed and climbed and climbed. It's like, if you're going to be toxic to me, Abu, who can play at that game? I am a Pisces, sun and moon, so reflection is the name of the game. And sometimes I can feel as though automatically being reflective can sometimes reflect toxicity if like that's the mirror. Like, if that's the person and I'm choosing to like deal with them in a social setting, then I'm gonna get on that level in a response to pick up for myself. I don't know if that's toxic or not. We'll think about it. You know what? Y'all tell me. Like, just comment down in the comments. Do you think that's toxic? Like, is that... I could choose just not to deal with the person, and I did quit. But it's like, I didn't really have no beef with him. It's just that just don't talk to me like that. In like 2 of my relationships, I feel like I was toxic once I started seeing somebody was being toxic to me. And I didn't choose to leave because I had a weird attachment. But why did I have that weird attachment to people that were mean to me? One video that I watched, the girl said you just really need to ask yourself why certain things. And I'm not writing this down. It's more of a video journal and me consciously going through thoughts with myself. When you're doing shadow work, Ask yourself why. I'm gonna link her video. It was a good guide on how to really do this with myself. I'm still doing it more so unorthodox, but that's just who I am. I'm just an unorthodox type of bitch, doing shit unorthodoxly. But why did I choose to stay in social situations even though I could clearly see that this situation wasn't healthy? I think I know why. Okay, so this just popped into my head. My dynamic at home, my mom was a single mom. Shout out to her. She kept a roof over my head, food in my belly, you know, fly clothes on my back. Always stepping, you know what I mean? Shout out to her. But the emotional dynamic in my household was always abrasive, abrupt, bold, unfiltered, I would have to say. And I feel like because that's something that I grew up with and it kind of molded my combative spirit, I feel like that's something that is necessary, doesn't make me feel safe, but is comfortable. When I entered into relationships, if it mimicked that type of dynamic, I felt I knew what I was doing. I was comfortable, already been here before, so it's like everyday life. So I never really stepped back and was like, this is actually super bad for me. Because one thing that I did write about myself in one of the prompts that I looked up online, I can link the website below too because they have really cool prompts, is why do I struggle to show compassion to myself? And as I was like writing, I was just freely writing in my journal, I said that sometimes, well, truly a lot of the times, I know what I'm doing when I make impulsive decisions. I'm generally just doing it for the plot a lot of the times, to just experience or go through something, if that makes sense. And I struggle showing compassion for myself because it's hard to feel sorry for an adrenaline junkie. I also watched this other video, I'm gonna link it. It's a girl, she had a beautiful TED Talk. It was great, I'm not gonna lie. It really opened my mind to the semantics of shadow work. And she described it as processing your history. And if you don't process your history, you will not understand your triggers. You wouldn't understand your triggers, so therefore you won't be able to process why you are in this situation, and the trauma will just be hazy and it will still affect you. So, my history, a lot of things that happened to me when I was a small child, I genuinely feel like, in a crazy way, this is about to be super crazy, that for a long time I knew that I felt as though I personally was only good for sexual activity. And for a minute, I truly did believe that, because every time I ran into a romantic relationship, that was the theme of the relationship. And as I kind of think back, I think subconsciously I somewhat always thought that because the statistic got me, okay? And it wasn't really anybody's fault of my mom or my dad, because I was one of the children that kind of like kept very silent about what was truly going on. I just remember during certain times I was in a dynamic where I felt like if I didn't do this, I wasn't going to be the favorite, or I wasn't going to be praised, or I wasn't going to be the one that was special. As a small child, getting traumatized and then taught that by somebody that I looked up to continued to be in the back of my mind. The actions that I did and the decisions that I made, I feel were based off that small belief in the back of my head. And that's why I made certain decisions in that time. You think more cautiously now. I do make mistakes, and I do kind of let, like, you know, my emotions get the best of me sometimes as well still. But like after I make a decision, it's a lot more of a thought process behind it. And I've done this shadow work like before. I'm just like sharing with y'all so y'all can see, like, you know, my process as well. And hopefully this process like helps you think, or helps you or guides you into the way to think like how you can do this shit on your own. Now I'm going to go into some prompts that I took from the video that I just watched. One person that I really would like to forgive. I've already kind of forgiven my dad for like the feeling of me feeling like he wasn't there, because it wasn't really, it was like it takes two to tango. And I would have to say that I feel like as I grew up, my mom did have a big part in how I perceived my father. And it kind of got to a point in my life where it was like all of us against him, because my dad wasn't necessarily fitting the box my mother wanted him to be in. And I'm not saying that her requirements or like what she wanted him to do was wrong. It just wasn't his way. And I don't think that anybody came to a good understanding on how we all necessarily show love, receive love, and we never really necessarily worked on, until kind of now that I'm doing it myself, worked on understanding each other. Like as a kid, I personally always liked to be spent, like my mom spent a lot of time with us, and I kind of developed like a love language of quality time. And I think that's how I expressed my love, and I just kind of felt like that's how others should express their love to me. And if that's not it, that's not love. Kind of like a fucked up type of mindset, very selfish. As I think back on my childhood, my dad shows love in the same way that he's showing me love now. And because like I kind of understand him more as a person, I can receive that love and feel support from my father. I'm just receiving it well now. So I think like I do want to forgive my dad, because I was very hurt when I was a child. I just didn't understand a lot of things in life. A lot of things is really about politics. If you really think about it, like everybody's drama is just politics. Mama was politicking, but we're not gonna get into that. It's crazy because I really do want to have a conversation with her about how her opinion, her hurt kind of shaped my relationship with my dad in the like beginning of my childhood. My mom is not a bad person. It's just that she, you know, hurt people. My mom was just really shocked by a lot of events that happened in her life, and it just didn't go over well with her. She's a human being, so it is what it is. A memory that I suppress, I feel like I suppress like a lot of the memories that have to do with a lot of my sexual abuse, because it's just kind of hard to think about. As I grow older, I kind of like find myself, I daydream a lot, so I find myself sometimes daydreaming and remembering what kind of happened as I've been doing shadow work, if that makes sense. Like I try to remember in the best way possible. The memory of like always getting told that if I don't do this certain thing, I'm just not going to be a favorite. Every time I think about that shit is so sad. Like, that's really sad. Like, because at the end of the day, I'm special regardless, like, of anything. The way that I think is radical and very out of the box. it's unique. When people talk to me, they're able to like shift through all of their crazy thoughts, you know? Because I'm just like, I'm the definition of we listen and we don't judge. I'm literally the definition of that, because it's a lot of crazy things that happened in my life, and I'm still like genuinely at the core a good person. So I know that just because you've gone through traumatic stuff, or just because you've made some fucked up decisions, doesn't mean that you are a horrible, mean, terrible, no good, very bad person. Like, it doesn't mean that. It just means that you go through some crazy shit. And sometimes, like, how you respond to your body's emotions, feelings, like, sometimes, like, you wasn't really taught how to do that properly, because I personally don't think I was taught to do that properly. I had to learn how to, like, not go to fuck off, and I had to learn how to not cry every time, like, I felt like I wasn't truly receiving what I deserved. When I get into a relationship and, like, I'm done wrong, like, when I'm done wrong in a relationship, or where I'm in a situation where I admire somebody and they just kind of like disappoint me, I feel like that's why I always want to get them back. Oh my gosh. I do. I truly feel that's why I always want to get it back in blood when I feel like I'm wrong, because I never got it back in blood with that situation. I've always gotten the shorter end of the stick, because that situation was never really resolved with me. Like, I was just kind of abused and forgotten about, and forced myself to forget about it too. When I really think about that situation, and I'm trying to really, really think about how I felt, because I remember now. When I feel like I'm not the center or the focus of somebody's like time or world, sex is what I use to grasp attention, because when I was younger, that's what I had to do. I was really young, so I really was just listening to people, because like, they're older than me and they're my family, and I was told to trust and listen to them. In a weird way, because I've never really sought out a dynamic that was different than the one I was exposed to, because it was the first inkling of a dynamic, if that makes sense. Because if I really think about my very first real relationship, I had dated this really older man. I was also like 19 too, so it was like I was in college. I was getting out there and getting some type of freedom. I got into this relationship, and the dynamic was very authoritative. Bitch. Like, he gave gorilla pimp vibes. Like, he gave controlling. He gave like man of the house. I just automatically listened to him, because he was very I don't know, why do I just listen to men? Sometimes that's just not the way to go, listening to a nigga, because they just get you, because sometimes they just put you in like really crazy odd situations, but they just keep you around, and I'm just like, I don't know why dudes do that. Like, why you just don't leave me alone? Just say like you don't really want to fuck me no more. Like, I might cry, I might be like, no, I'll be alright. And I feel like ditto. Like, I told people to leave alone. Like, I don't really want to do this no more, and mean it. In that relationship, it was a similar dynamic to my abuse, because it was times where like I was not sexually in the mood or wanting to, and I was threatened with like loss of interest. And it was just like, and not really by words like, oh yeah, I'm gonna lose interest. It was more so by actions. When I think about it on another boyfriend that I had, That was crazy. I don't know if I even want to tell y'all about like my pseudo ex. Like, that dynamic was weird. It mimicked my abuse in a way differently than my first relationship, but it was still like the same. It was more so manipulative in a way just to get sex. It was so crazy. I think it was crazy. Y'all can really comment if y'all want to hear the story time about how like I literally dated somebody that lied about their entire life. Yeah, hence pseudo ex. Your girl, she ain't always been this smart, beautiful, like reflective young beauty. Like, she ain't always been this cool. When I think about back, like, why did I stay in that relationship, I also feel like that person was familiar and I was comfortable with like our dynamic. Like, for a moment I was only feeding into a physical part of me, and I feel like that really stopped when I dated my pseudo ex. I would say I created a bond with my first boyfriend. When I talked about I was really old, I created a true bond with him. But once the dynamic started getting really abusive, I feel like I was more so just agreeing to agree to get to the next day. Once I started feeling unsafe but comfortable, I started to disassociate. That's why I feel like that wasn't like a true bond. But I feel like my last relationship was a real bond. Like, I really fucked with him for a very long time until he fucked me over real bad. And I immediately like switched up, but I stayed. And it's so fucked up. It's very fucked up of me. But I stayed and suffered with him in order for him to suffer with me. I really stayed after I was wronged because I wanted that person to really truly see me fall out of love with them. And with that being said, maybe I am toxic. Maybe I am toxic. I could have just left and gone about my business. I'm gonna get better. Okay? Yeah. Stand up for myself, but don't do revenge. Alright, so I'm gonna leave y'all with that.
Come on, you my bitch, so come on. Stop playing, the fuck is you on? The fuck is you on? I love how you miss it too toxic. Can't give up my heart cause you got it. Put you back when I'm smoking exotic. And I'm thinking